right off
Born
the
in
scene.
1931 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My parents were Ed Bourbeau and Emma Bourbeau.
April 2nd.
April 2nd, when I was born, I was in that very bad health. They thought I wasn't going to make it. But I surprised them. And I had 3 brothers and a sister. My oldest brother was Don. Then came my sister Lucille. Then came my other brother Vince. Then my other brother Harold.
And you were the baby.
And I was the baby. One good look at me and he says, you know, son, you're going to be a football player. That's what I thought he meant. And I said, well, gee, what do you mean that? He looked at me and said, this is the end.
You were going to be the end. Okay.
It was a time of the Depression, and I mean, we're lucky if we ever had food on the table. It was that bad.
Could we back up just a second so you could...
I had a lot of school friends, kids, you know, my age, who never got into trouble in that, and everything turned out swell. And I had a dog. Now, if you want that story, I had a dog, and in fact, there was 2 of them. Now I'm about 7 or 8 years old. And this is hard to believe what happened here, but this one dog just liked me all the time. Wherever I went, the dog would follow me, you know. But it happened one day that this dog, evidently, the way the story goes, is that he attacked the mailman a little bit. We don't know for sure, but the mailman went back to his post and he reported it. And this is hard to believe. You know, a police officer came to our house and he says, I got a report that your dog attacked the postman. And my mother says, well, I don't know if he really attacked him. He said, well, the policeman said, well, I got the report he did. Where is the dog? She said, what's in the house? I'll call him out here, he says. And this is hard to believe. They called the dog out. The cop got the dog in my backyard, pulled out his gun and shot him right there. He said, you got another dog? Yeah. Bring that dog out. And he shot both dogs right there. And it was sad. Here you are, a 7 or 8 year old kid, and you're a cop coming and shooting your dogs. I'll never forget that.
That was a tragedy.
That was a tragedy. In there, you know, a guy came around the house and taking pictures of kids on horses and charging a few bucks.
He brought the horse with him.
Back in those times, my mother would say, well, we have to take you to the dentist. And the dentist was maybe about 3 or 4 miles away. The streetcar could take you, but we didn't have enough money to go on the streetcar both ways. So my mother would always say, do you want to walk there or take the streetcar there and walk back? And I always say, well, let's walk there. And I'm praying that doggone guy is closed.
By the time you get there.
Yes, but he never was.
That was smart thinking. You were a smart kid right
What
from
they
the
did
beginning.
there, they didn't fill your teeth, they pulled it. You know, they give you a shot of Novocaine, and I don't think this guy waited for the Novocaine to take effect, and you pull your tooth right there. That was not
So that
fun.
that was one of your bad experiences.
Yep.
All right, now.
Years old once. You know, I like to say little things that happened in my life. I was riding my bicycle, and it was a hot summer day, see? And doggone it, I fainted on the bike. All of a sudden, I just fell. And when I fell, I hit my head on a bumper of a car. My head just swelled up like a doggone big baseball there.
Yeah.
Hold on there.
The darn bike hit my head on the bumper of a car. And I had a big bulge on my head right here. And there's a guy that seen me fall down, and he knew who I was, and he walked me all the way home. And it looked bad, and my mother said, "Boy, we're going to have to take you to the doctor because it was pretty severe." My brother Vince came in, and he says, looked at me, and he says, "Man, what happened?" And I told him what happened. He says, "You'll never make it through the night. You got hit in the temple. Anybody gets hit in the temple that bad, they'll never make it." But my mother took me to the doctor, and I don't know, he must have did something with it, and I got a little scar by it. Pardon?
Stitches? You got stitches?
Well, yeah, I imagine I had stitches at there, but that's about the only thing I can really remember. And so where do we go from there now? Oh, about my mother now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she died when I was only about 10 or 11 years old, see. And so I can't really remember a lot about her, but The only thing I can remember sometimes, I'll be with her and she'll meet some friends and she'll always say, and this is my little boy. And that used to get me, I don't like it when you call me your little boy.
Then what did he says,
Or my little baby. But anyway, then a lot of times she would, when I do something good, you know what she'd say to me? I would trade you for the whole world with a fence around it.
Oh,
Isn't that a nice
that's
saying?
cute, yeah.
Yeah. What would she do with the whole world? I don't know. But anyway, she was wonderful and always there and never got mad at me. Well, how could she? I didn't do nothing wrong.
You're perfect.
But everything, he didn't do much around the house or anything, and he worked out of town a lot. See, he traveled from Minneapolis to Seattle and worked for the railroad, so I never seen him too much. So, but my brothers were good to me. And
Who are your brothers?
Don was first, and Vince, and then Harold, and I had my sister Lucille. And she was a hard-working gal. She was a seamstress, and that. But anyway, now we're getting back to my mother. Now as I'm about 10 years old, something like that, I used to sell papers down on the corner. And these are Sunday papers, see. And it was on a Sunday, and I would go to Mass about 6 o'clock in the morning, and after Mass I'd run down there, get my papers and run down the corner and sell them. And I'm down the corner, and I'm just guessing time now. Must have been about 8 o'clock or so, and an ambulance came by. Now, here I am, like I say, a 10-year-old kid, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if that ambulance went to my house. Why I would think that, I don't know. So it went by our house. In the meantime, a little while later, a guy comes over and he says, hey, Everett. And I said, yeah. I knew him. I forget his name now. He says, that ambulance went to your house. I said, why? I didn't know. I couldn't believe it. So, and I waited there, and just after that the guy told me that, the ambulance went back to the hospital. And I said, well, and I went on my bike, went home to see what had happened. They just said she got sick, but maybe you know what happened. But she got sick, so I just, went back and finished selling my papers. Then the next day I went to school. I went to Oakwood. And back in those days, at lunchtime, we lived so close to school that we went home for lunch. Well, I went home for lunch, and that's when they told me.
That she had died.
oh, Ab, I'm sorry, we shouldn't have made
Yeah,
you-
anyway, then after she passed away, I never made my first communion yet. And my sister Lucille told my dad, Everett hasn't made his communion or confirmation. And maybe we should go over and see the priest over at Immaculate Conception. And in fact, Lucille said, I think he should go to school there. Well, we didn't have really any money to go to school there. That's what we were sort of scared of. So we went and seen the priest, and he knew the story of what happened. So I went to school there,
What school was that?
Immaculate Conception.
What grade was it, Ab?
That was 6th grade. So then the priest says, well, you got the baptismal certificate? And he said, well, we don't know if he even was baptized because I just about died when I was born. He says, we'll have to baptize him just to make sure, So they baptized me. And then after that, I studied to make my first communion. So I made my first communion, see. And we got a picture here of my friends, and I'm a little older than they were because back then they made it before me, see. So after I made my first communion, then I had to study for my confirmation. So I made my confirmation just before school ended. But then I wanted to go back to Oakwood School because 8th grade. And I had all my friends were there, and that's why I wanted to go back there. And so that's where I went. I went back there then, see, like everybody does. And then on to high school I go, 9th grade. And I had a brother that was in 12th grade at that time, Harold. And high school was nice. There's no big stories about that. You just went through high school. You went
No
out
cute girl or
Oh yeah, I had a, even before I met my wonderful wife.
Shut it up.
When you're a senior in high school back in Oakwood, on Valentine's Day, the seniors had a little booth downstairs. If you want to send out a singing telegram to a girl, you can. See, all this is going on Valentine's Day. Well, I didn't know any, I didn't have any eye on it. I'm just in ninth grade, But I happen to have a friend that's in 12th grade, and he could sing a little bit. So what does he do? He knocks on the door where I'm having English or something. Singing telegram forever, Oh my goodness, this guy comes up to me and I'm turning red, all shades of red, and singing some love song to me and and from the homeliest looking girl. Gee, that was terrible. When I was in 11th grade, going into 12th, that summer I worked for Montgomery Ward's, just downtown St. Paul. And that was nice, made a few dollars, and my brother taught me how to drive a car then.
Which brother?
Vince. Yeah. Selling papers at Northern Pump. This was during the war now, see. And the Northern Pump was made a lot of stuff for the war efforts. So lots of people were there. And Vince had selling papers down there. He'd sell 2,000 papers a day. And he'd have me help him come down there in the morning. He'd drive me down there in the morning and watch it from 6 to 7, where the shift of the workers would come home, see. And that was a sort of fun, but he got drafted. But he had a bad arm, and they drafted him anyway, and then when he was in basic training, he cut his arm in a maneuver, and they looked at his arm, and he didn't understand how he even got drafted, so they gave him a medical discharge.
Well, what happened to his arm?
He got it caught in a wringer of a sewing machine when he was a little kid.
Sewing machine?
I mean, a wash machine when he was a little kid.
So kind of twisted it?
Oh, he had a scar from here all the way down here.
Wow.
He just about lost his arm.
Wow.
So anyway, he got discharged right away. And then Harold, my brother Harold, he joined, and he was over in Japan. So he joined, and he was only in three. And the neighbor, my neighbor across the street came over. It was a lady, see, and she came over, and she brought this young girl with her. That was her cousin or something like that. And she says, I like that. And I'm sitting in the chair reading the funny papers, Sunday, And she says, I'd like to have you meet my cousin Pat here, I'm just in hi, Pat. Nice to meet you. And she, I guess she really had eyes for me. She tells me that now, anyway.
So what was your first impression of Pat? Was it head over heels in
no,
love? Or?
No. I never was at anybody at that time, But anyway, now this was in the morning, I think, and the next day, or maybe even that afternoon, I'm going down to the carnival. Columbia Heights has a carnival every year. Me and my friend Ralph Newman are going to go to the carnival. Walking down the street to go to the carnival, and Pat was over at her cousin's house that lived right across the street from me, And as we were walking down, Marie, her name was Marie, yelled over, see, which one of you lucky boys are going to take Pat to the carnival? Ralph looked at me and I looked at him, and I know Ralph didn't have any money. I had a part-time job, so I had some money on me. I said, well, Ralph, let's flip. I won the flip. In other words, when I won, that means I didn't have to take her.
You didn't have to take her.
I didn't.
You got a car.
Well, yeah. And I said to Ralph, well, you don't have any money? And he said, well, I can't take her. I said, well, Ralph, I can't let her sit there alone, standing there alone. I'll take her. So I took her. And we hit it off real good. And that's
history, 60 years later.
Yeah. She wouldn't let me out of her sight.
They wouldn't leave you alone.
So then we courted, and I was...
How far you had to go to court meet?
Well, He had to throw that in. She lived South Minneapolis. See, but I had a car.
Now,
you
how
know.
far a drive was that?
Oh, about a half an hour,
Oh, wow.
roughly.
In those days, it was more than that because there was no freeway.
I always said I'm not going to get married till at least 21 years old. Because my dad wouldn't sign for me. No, I wait.
Now, did your dad like Pat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she liked Pat anyway, then, and what?
And then where did you get married?
St. Helena's Church. That's another thing. Before we got married, and she went to St. Helena's, and we went to confession. I'll never forget that time. She said, well, why don't you come to confession at our church, you know? I said, that's fine. I'll go to confession at your church. So we go into the confessional. There's two priests. There's one here that has a line a mile long. That guy here don't have hardly anybody. I said, I'm going to go to that guy. Well, I found out why you don't go to that guy, because he can't hear. What's that? What's that?
You did what?
Yeah.
What was his name?
Father
Rowan.
Rowan. And I didn't do nothing bad anyway, so anyway,
You
that's
never
the way
did.
it- But I had to wait for her to get out of that other line. I don't know why she didn't want to go to him.
Because I knew he was my priest.
Yeah, but you didn't do nothing bad, I hope.
Well, no, but the wife was
We got married then.
like a priest.
I was 21, and you were 18.
Wow.
By the way, that was just for the summer. Then when I got out of school, I worked with my dad. We traveled from Minneapolis to Seattle, see, and that's when I was courting Pat. See,
What did you do?
we worked in boilers and we did the inside of boilers. Terrible job.
Oh.
Anyway, I got as far as I think Livingston, Montana, or something like that. And I said, you know, Dad, I really don't like this, and I'm looking at that nice picture of my girlfriend. I said, I want to get home.
Which girlfriend was that?
I forget her name now. No,
So
anyway,
many.
my dad said, well, sure, go. You can go home. And I had a pass to go home, and I went home. See, but as soon as I got home, then I tried put an application at Foley Manufacturing. So I worked there.
Phony?
Foley.
Oh, Foley. What was that?
Well, they made kitchen utensils, lawnmowers, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I worked in the receiving department. I can remember the first day I worked there. I had to lift a lot of what they called it lead, and these things weighed about 80 pounds apiece. And I'm a young, small kid, and I worked on that for a couple hours. And then when I got home, I said, geez, I don't feel good. And I lay down, just something broke inside of me. And it sounded like you pour a bottle of beer, you know,
Yeah.
and it sounded just like that. So I didn't say anything to them at work. They had a first aid man down there until a few days later, you know, and I said, you know, there's something wrong with me. And I told him what I did. And I said it happened at work, you know. So he said, well, you go to the doctor, we'll send you to this doctor. And then he found out I had a hernia.
Oh. Well, so what was the noise?
I don't know what it was, but
Wow.
something that broke there or something. But then I had the operation, and that worked out fine. That was my first operation until about, a month later or 2 months later. I remember that too. I was still there at Foley's, and man, all of a sudden I got so sick in the morning. And I never get sick, but I was really sick. My dad said, we're going to have to call a doctor, and it was about 20 below zero out. I remember that. And the doctor came over. And they hardly ever make house calls, you know, but whatever they said to him, they said, you better see him, the guy's dying, you know. The doctor came in. First thing I can remember, and the first thing he said, you got insurance? That's what he said. And I did have insurance where I worked, you know. He said, well, you got to go to the hospital. I think you got appendicitis. And that's what I had.
Oh, wow.
So, not right away, no. And then we got married, right?
Oh, so you got married working at Foley.
I got married working at Foley's, yeah. Got married in 1952, September 6th. I'll never forget that too. You know, Pat's has a lot of sisters and that, and it's a big church and that nice rainbow wedding, is that what they call
Rainbow,
it? And everything
yeah.
turned out fine, but her mother's always late, see? So the bride, the groom and all the groomsmen, they came on the altar first, and I'm waiting, and everybody else is waiting, no Pat, and we're waiting and waiting. No Pat, and I looked at my wife, maybe I can get out of this, I don't know. No. But it was embarrassing, she
So
finally came down.
seriously, you were you were all up on the altar?
Yes, waiting, her mother was late. And,
But why did they begin if she wasn't even there?
well, they thought she would have been there by now,
Oh.
evidently. I don't know, I
Oh
was
my
up on the
goodness.
altar.
Oh,